Training camp day 4, where the offense strikes back. Dennis Allen talked pretty candidly about some key players as well as some position groups, plus the injury report. And then we'll talk some top plays and top players from today's practice. Better get to it. So I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. But one of the first things that he talked about was he was asked about Mason Tipton, who's an undrafted free agent from Yale. Turned some heads today, and we'll get to that in the top player section. One of the reasons why I'm bringing him up here. And DA was like, look, he is extremely fast, which I think most of us figured that the way they talk about this offense, any of our undrafted free agent skill positions, yeah, they have speed. But he also talked about intelligent. So like really, really smart. And DA even dropped the line. He said, I'm not just talking about Yale smart. I mean, also football smart. He really is grasping what's going on out there, and he can make some plays. In fact, DA also added that sometimes the people who are really smart are too smart to play football, but he said apparently Mason isn't one of them because he's out here and he's playing very, very well. Shortly thereafter, Rattler was the one that was throwing the ball to Tipton today in practice. And so he kind of came up, and DA shifted it from the question about Rattler, some of the good throws he made, to the quarterbacks in general. And he said something kind of interesting, that all three of them have had moments doing the things that we think they're capable of doing. They're doing the things why we brought them in here because we think they can do them. But he said right now the key is to get them to do it consistently. So he's talking about we want them to do these things every single day, every single practice, on every single snap, which I'm like, man, I like that attitude, just going, because, and I know they know, and we're not going to be perfect on everything we do on every single play, but they're striving for it. They're trying to be perfect. So it's kind of a little change in attitude because it really felt like last year and the year before was kind of like there wasn't that strive for perfection. Not as intense as this. It's almost like it was that attitude of, hey, if we can just get into the playoffs, anything can happen. You're almost saying, hey, if we can do just enough to get by, then anything can happen. That's always kind of how I felt about it. But now he's flat out telling us in a press conference the things that we know that they can do well, the reasons why we brought him in here, and we have seen him do it at times. We want him to do it every time. We want to turn this ship around. We want to start winning again. That's one of the ways you do it. Now, we are going to jump in because the next player is Nick Saldiveri. He got asked a question about it. It's a kind of a short one, but it was an interesting one to say the least.
And so I think we'll have a better idea when we put the pads on. But I do think there's some understanding of what we're trying to do. I think there's some cohesiveness, up front with how we're blocking things. I think our guys are working in concert pretty good together. So that's been encouraging.
It might be a little too early on this one too, but in the first few days, what have you seen from Nick Saldiveri?
Probably the same thing that I was talking about with a lot of these guys. In particular the young guys. I mean, I've seen some really good things from him, some athletic movement skills from him that I think have been good, and then I've seen a lot of things that he's got to work to improve on. And so, but again, look, he's making progress. Now the key is we got to make some pretty fast progress, and so. That's what I'm looking for out of him is accelerate the process a little bit.
Accelerate the process a little bit. So, because there was the mention yesterday that Saldiveri was running with the twos, and Patrick was running with the ones. I was kind of, when they brought up Saldiveri, I was hoping they would go there and question anything to do with that, but they didn't. So. So I'm not really sure what to say, but that was just a little insight of maybe what's going on. It's not that they don't like what they're seeing from Saldiveri, which is good. They need to see more of it faster. And I think that's just basically what he's saying. It's like maybe a little slower process coming along. And if that's the case, I can see where that would be the thing where, yeah, we might have to make a move a little bit and bring up the 2 to the 1 to the 2, or have them both run, and they may be doing that. I don't really know, but I can see where, and everybody always thought those 2 were going to at some point have a position battle in training camp.
Will Harris, it seems like he's getting a good look out.
Yeah, look, size, athleticism, speed. He's a rangy safety, and he comes to work every day. He's a
Okay, he said rangy safety, and when I was watching this first time earlier today, I kind of did what I just did. I was taking a sip of my drink, and I was doing something pretty much similar when I was watching this live. And it was like, wait, did he just say rangy safety? So I'm going, I don't know if that was just safety as in a defensive back. And, because we talked about he played so many positions in Detroit, the expectation was he was going to do it here. But to call him a rangy safety, he's talking about his size, his speed, his athleticism. He's a rangy safety. And that's just sounding like kind of what back end free safeties do. No, he's played that some in Detroit. I think most of the expectations were corner or slot corner. But that little, I don't know if that was a slip of the tongue or just, look, I'm splitting hairs here. I don't know, but I stood up the phrase rangy safety. Maybe Harris is in serious play for that second starting job. And if he is rangy, makes me think on the back end, which would put Badger in a box. We'll see. But it was an interesting comment.
grinder. So all those things are good. I think he's another one that, the more he gets accustomed to what we're doing defensively and the way we're asking our guys to operate back there, I think he'll get even more and more comfortable at the position. And I think he's a guy that, potentially there could be multiple roles for. So, but, that I think is going to really be determined, over the course of the next, month or 6 weeks, whatever the case may be.
Then he ends it with, well, hey, but he possible multiple roles, not going specifically, but we've been talking about Will Harris ever since he was signed, because I thought that was a really good sign. I think a lot of people do, because of his versatility that he's shown and coming in and help you so many spots. So I don't know if rangy safety was a slip of the tongue and he just let a little information out. And I guess we'll find out, like he's saying, in the next couple of weeks, especially when more and more practices get open, preseason starts, the joint practices with San Francisco, all that stuff. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of these questions are going to be answered. But that one was just one that I just rangy safety. It's a weird slip of the tongue. Okay, the next bit, this is going to run for a little long, but I will stop it a couple of times because the one player that did draw a lot of attention, and oddly enough, it took 4 days for it to happen, was Taysom Hill. So they kind of got on a roll, DA and some of the reporters on Taysom. However, there's one in the middle of it. Very interesting question. Some intrepid reporter managed to slip in that wasn't Taysom Bays. So I'll definitely stop it there and we'll talk about that. But basically what's going to happen is you're going to have mostly Taysom Hill with a little splash of Kool-Aid McKinstry in there. See what I did there?
Taysom hasn't been a traditional quarterback in a while now here, but I don't think we've seen him throw a pass in a minute. Just how is he kind of handling that?
Awesome. Yeah, he's been awesome. He's handled everything that we've thrown at him, and we've thrown a lot at him.
Okay, I had to stop it right there because I don't know who that is asking the question, and he's got a couple more sprinkled in here, and some I didn't bother to put in here because it just wasn't a relevant question or answer. But that's one of the questions I would never ever ask about Taysom Hill, having watched him since he showed up here and in the middle of the Peyton era. And it's like everything they've ever asked him to do, he's been really good at. And they go into this a little later, but yeah, throw the ball, play quarterback, there's wildcat quarterback. There was a little period of time where he was lining up around 2017, 2018. We had a few plays dialed up where he was in the backfield next to Drew. And actually, I remember we were playing Baltimore and he picked up a key first down on a pitch because it's out the backfield. And I think it was just Baltimore figured, hey, there's no way they're going to let him run the ball. Well, they let him run the ball straight from the running back position. So he's blocked punts. I can't swear to it. And this conversation again comes up a little later, but he may have even returned punts at some point. No, he returned kicks. I mean, come on. The guy is a football player. If they would just ever make a Hall of Fame position as football player, he's in on the first ballot. No questions asked.
He's playing a lot of different positions, a lot of different areas, motions, shifts, alignments, positions, but he's handled it like a true pro. And look, there's a lot of guys that have an athletic skill set, but you can't throw that much on them because they can't handle it mentally. This is a guy that can handle a ton mentally.
And until he said that, I never really thought about that, but I'm like, yeah, that is all that stuff the football player role that they had. And as he's going to talk, is going to expand, it sounds like. Never really thought of the mental aspect. I was always focused on the physical aspect because that's amazing enough. But then when you stop and have to think about it, going, yeah, that's a lot of information you have to know to be able to play all those different positions, whether it's coming from the playbook or it's techniques you got to learn or side adjustments, or only he and probably just a handful of people on the planet know the answer to that how much knowledge he's got to stuff in there to be able to do all this stuff. So I got to give DA credit for that, for bringing that up, because it's been years watching Taysom, and I never thought of the mental aspect. I was just always so wowed by the physical aspect.
And it's been fun for me to see a fresh vision for how we can utilize this player. It's not just as the wildcat quarterback. There's a lot of other things that this guy can do, both in the running game and the passing game.
Do you see like a clear vision for him, or is it still sort of a work in progress?
Yeah, well, the clear vision is he's going to do a lot of stuff.
I'm not going to throw shade at a reporter, but really, can't believe he asked that after the answer D had just given on the previous question, but he did.
Right? I mean, he's going to do a lot of stuff. He's going to run routes, both from inline, out wide, out of the backfield. He's going to block. He's going to run the ball from the backfield. So, yeah, I mean, I see him as a guy that's going to do a ton of different stuff. He's going to line up at the quarterback position at some point in time, and so I think he's an awesome weapon to have, and I think he's extremely selfless in terms of a person, in terms of a player, and just wants to do whatever he can to help the team win, and I know I appreciate that.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Kool-Aid the last 2 days on the outside.
Say it again?
We've seen a lot of Kool-Aid the last 2 days on the outside. How valuable are these reps for him right now? What are you looking for him to show?
Well, extremely valuable. I mean, he's a rookie that missed all the spring. So he's 1,000 reps behind.
Okay. I really wish somebody would have asked the obvious follow-up question here, because I'm not sure if he's saying sarcastically, he's 1,000 reps behind, just kind of exaggerating, or in the possibility in those about 4 weeks from rookie minicamp through OTAs to minicamp, is it possible they were taking 1,000 snaps? I mean, it just seems nuts. But in a 17-game season, if you're a cornerback taking about, say, 60 snaps a game, Pretty sure that math works out to somewhere around 1,000. So if that's the scenario, and they compressed 17 weeks into 4 or 5, when they are saying, and look, I know they weren't in pads and they weren't hitting, but just doing that, they they've been saying all along how hard they were working during that period. If the cornerbacks are taking 1,000 plus snaps, or the secondary and all, I applaud the work ethic. I applaud it, and it would mean good things. But again, I don't know for sure if that's the number they're kind of thinking, or if he was just being a little facetious.
So every rep that he can get is a learning experience for him. Good news for him is that he's smart. He comes from a system that did a lot in college. Fundamentally and technique, he's sound. And yet there's differences in terms of how we do things compared to what he did in college, and so he's got to get up to speed on those things. So, but he'll be a quick study. And look, he's just got to get out here and get the reps.
What are all the positions Tipton has played?
Somebody asked the question, how many positions Taysom has played before. So I'll click it back, because one thing he said at the very end is basically that's another. In this press conference, there's been a lot of mentions about the intelligence of the players on the team, their football smarts. Mason Tipton. There's a little bit on the quarterbacks and the offensive lines, but some of the stuff I didn't show, but it's in there, and it was talked about. He brought up the point about Taysom having to be able to do all those scenarios. And Kool-Aid. And I do remember Nick Saban talking about that. Was one of the things he used to talk about Kool-Aid, was he could always handle anything we were throwing at him, which is a big deal because, we know Nick Saban's defenses can get as complex as a lot of, or possibly even more complex than some NFL defenses. So it's pretty good exposure. And the fact that he's already got some mentions in training camp so far about making some plays and having some good coverage. So they're throwing a lot at him. He seems to be handling it. Love hearing that.
Well, he's played tight end, he's played running back, he's played fullback, he's played wide receiver. He hasn't played any defense yet. He's played personal protector. He's been a kickoff returner. I'm probably missing something, but I mean, just about every potential skill position that you can think of, he's done it. Punt rush.
And there's different alignments for each of
You're out there watching, aren't you?
Because he's been a quarterback, does that allow you to kind of just put off him throwing the ball if need be? He can do it. So
Yeah. Look, I mean, he can handle a lot, right? But at some point, why don't we get him good at the things that maybe he hadn't done quite as much? And let's get him good at those things. And then it's kind of like riding a bicycle a little bit. We'll be able to get him back on the bike a little bit. And
they definitely had to pause there. It's a little earlier it's kind of why do you have a clear plan for him? Yeah, we're going to use him everywhere. And talking about, he's not throwing right now. And I think more specifically, you're not seeing him in the quarterback room or out on the field throwing the ball, apparently. I think that's what they were directly referring to, going, it's like riding a bike. He knows how to do all that. Let's get him better at the stuff he doesn't, do as well, and get him good at it. It's the exact phrase he used. And I am looking at how versatile and insane and crazy and creative this style of offense can be. And I've said from the get-go, and I am going to throw it up on the end screen of this one, about how Kubiak he has a weapon, but he has a toy. He has so much stuff he can do in this offense in one guy that we barely used, considering his insane athletic ability and obviously insane football intelligence as DA just brought to our attention going, you got to have tremendous football intelligence to be able to do all those different roles, all those different tasks. So, yeah, I'm not hugely worried about him throwing the ball right now. There may come to a time where we are going to go a little more in the as a wildcat runner, the Taysom package and all the stuff he does there with the passing or throwing component added into it. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm hoping this offense works so well that we don't need to use Taysom that way. We're going to use them all the other ways that DA was talking about. Primarily, it was Ross Jackson, Catherine Terrell, John Hendricks. Kind of when everything was coming out, they were talking about some of the top plays and posting little clips and all that on Twitter. And they were kind of posting and talking about each other stuff. So I'm using this as and that's typically what happens. Nick Underhill, Mike Triplett, and some other of the New Orleans local writers are going to come in and do the same thing. So I can always take that if they're posting it and retweeting it and talking amongst each other, tweeting amongst each other about the stuff they saw, that it's accurate and that's confirmation. And so I'm okay to roll with it. There's one thing on here I'm a little hazy on. I'll point it out when I get to it. And I'm just, because I'm not breaking news guy, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And when I started shooting this, I double checked and I'm still not sure what's going on. But I'm going to throw it out there because Ross Jackson kind of did. And it's on the injury report. The not seens from previous days, it's still Lattimore, Jeff Coat, and Heron. Brian Brzee joined them today. A little bit of bad news with a foot. One of the things they didn't show you in the DA press conferences, they were trying to ask for updates and timelines and all that, and he's having none of it. So kind of the reporting on this is we don't see him at practice, or in the case of Shane Lemieux and Kendre Miller, they actually said they were off to the side observing. So they were seen at practice, but they weren't, because they're kind of my question yesterday that I'm sure I wasn't the only one. What exactly does seen, not seen mean? So in their case, I mean, they're not doing rehab or any extra work, anything like that. During practice, they're just kind of observing on the sideline. This is the one I'm not sure what's going on. Offensive lineman Nuili. I hope I got that right, especially because of what I'm about ready to tell you. Was not seen. Now, it probably would have figured it was an injury. Nobody asked about it. Nobody asked in the DA press conference. But when I first saw it, it was Ross Jackson, and next to Nuili's name, he had possible cut. And then I saw at some point Luke Johnson had a tweet out there about the possibility of him being cut from the team. But I haven't seen anything officially confirming it. So I don't really know. And I don't want to throw this out there as like it happened, because I don't really know. I don't know if they know, but since we're willing to put their names on it, I'm thinking something, but I don't know. So I'm not breaking news guy on this one, just saying that they both kind of acknowledged this may be a possibility. I guess is the best way I can say it. So, or maybe he is hurt and somebody just got their wires crossed about trying to let the press know what's going on. This was literally the offense strikes back, because really the only defensive play that kind of got mentioned early. I know they're filling in more stuff now, but the initial reactions, because that's what I'm looking for. Like while practice is going on, I'm checking, or right after practice ended, checking to see what their top things they want to talk about are, because if that's the first things they want to talk about, then obviously some good things happen. The only thing I could really find on the defense was somebody fumbled and it was recovered by Kool-Aid. Everything else they were talking about, some of the eye-popping stuff was coming from the offensive side. And one of the great things is no interceptions were thrown today. Specific plays, one of them that was keep getting mentioned was Carter Shaheed on a deep downfield pass. And they were saying, look, he was giving credit for throwing great ball placement, putting it. He did talk about that, about how earlier in the week he threw a ball to Shaheed that was a completion, but it was in the wrong placement. And Kubiak let him know that, no, that's not acceptable. Apparently he got it. So it was the right placement, but they said it was a beautiful play. Spencer Rattler and Mason Tipton hogged a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I brought up, and Tipton was asked about in the DA. hogged a lot of this because Spencer Rattler, they had two good connections. One was a 40-yard off play action, and another was a sideline route where Tipton got in a toe tap. And they said defenders in the area. I wish they'd have been a little more clear, but they may not have really known. But what I'm picturing is he might have possible zone or a or a good move by Tipton and some type of man where he got wide open and Rattler was able to stick the ball right on him on the sideline where he could toe tap it. So I wish they kind of cleared that up, but that would be my two primary guesses of what they were meaning by defender in the area. And even Jake Hayner and Bub Means got into it because they was reported that they had a couple nice hookups today. Assuming that was probably with the threes, but I don't know that for sure. But whatever it was, they had a good day working. And speaking of Bub Means, he got another mention talking about a couple special teams highlights. He was one of them that they were working on special teams, said he looked great in coverage, and he had it down inside the 20. Don't know if it's punt or kick. I'm assuming punt, but I don't know that for sure. And our kicker, the undrafted free agent Charlie Smith from Ireland, there was a little blurb pass that he was 7-7 in his work today with a 59-yarder. 7-7 on the day with 59-yarder. I mean, you're kind of reaching Justin Tucker, at least for one day numbers in that stratosphere. So it's good to hear stuff like that. So I think really it sounds like a good day. It sounds like the offense may have finally caught up. I shouldn't say finally. The offense may have just caught up to the defense. Well, we were talking, a lot of people talking in this defense, it should be a little ahead, but eventually the offense is going to start getting it together. Now they're only in shells. There was a lot of comments, and some of it was asked about DA in the run game. How did it look? We think it looks good. And DA was like, hard to tell because they're not in pads. We will be Monday. Then we can figure a lot of that out. So, but he did mention he liked the way how everything was fluid with the offense, what they were doing today in the run game. It appeared like everybody's on the same page. But as he said, without pads, we do not know for sure if that defender would have been able to make a stop on that run play. So, again, we'll find out Monday when he gets for real. So tomorrow's an off day for them. Tomorrow's definitely an off day for me. One thing I do want to mention is the long form podcast will come back or is coming back Monday. We'll have an episode dropping Monday evening as we usually do. And we will be working towards eventually that being alive as we get into the preseason, but definitely by the time week one rolls around, that we'll be live on Mondays. Some combination of the two or three of us. So just to let you know, that's on the horizon. So everybody have a wonderful rest of the weekend, a wonderful Sunday. I'm going to hang out at the pool and have a couple of adult beverages tomorrow. So I'm going to enjoy myself. Make sure you enjoy yourself. Until I see you again, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.